Hello children, we are discussing the chapter 8, Getting to Know Plants. In this chapter, we are discussing the parts of the plant. In the first part, we had studied the part which grows below the ground is known as root. The roots are of two types. One is a tap root system and another one is fibrous or adventitious root system. Then we had discussed the function of roots. Roots majorly provide support to the plants. Roots helps in the transportation of water and minerals from the soil to the leaves, so that leaves can perform photosynthesis. Rather than this, roots also helps the plants to prevent soil erosion. They do not allow the upper fertile layer of the soil to remove. They also helps in the nitrogen fixation for the soil in some plants, for example, leguminous plants, example pulses. So that is the functions which we had studied, bache. We had also studied the modification of the roots. Then, bache, the second part which we had studied already is stem. The part which grows above the ground is known as stem. Stem has certain outgrowths known as buds. Those buds are of two types. The one which is present at the tip of the shoot or stem, that is known as apical bud, and the bud which are present in between the plant is known as axillary bud. Then bache, from the bud region, the plant will give rise to certain leaves, that is known as nodes, and the region between the two successive nodes is known as internodes. Then we have discussed the functions of the stem, bache. Stems helps in the transportation of food as well as in the transportation of water and minerals. Stems also store food, for example in potato, that is the modified stem. Then stems have certain pores named as lenticels through which the plants exchange their gases. Stems helps the plant to remain upright, to remain standing tall in any environmental condition. So that is the basic things about the stems. Then we have studied the next part which is related to the stem itself, that is leaves. The green, flat and broader portion is known as a leaf. That green broader portion is known as a leaf base or leaf margin. Next, the leaves performs a very important function for the plants, that is photosynthesis. Photo means light and synthesis means to produce. The production of food from the inorganic material like carbon dioxide, water, in the presence of sunlight in chlorophyll, the green color pigment due to which the plant leaves are green in color, that is known as a photosynthesis. Except that, plants also have tiny microscopic pores, that is known as stomata, and those stomata helps in the exchange of gases. So that is some things which we have discussed about the leaves. Now moving ahead, we'll discuss the next part of the plant, that is flower. You must have seen multicolored flowers, bache. The flowers are a very important and the most attractive part of a plant. The flowers are colorful because of a pigment named as chromoplasts. They have a specialized cell organelles which have specialized pigments. Those cell organelles are known as chromoplasts. About chromoplasts you will study in detail in your higher classes. These flowers are the reproductive organs of a plant. By that a plant will reproduce. Why? In plants, sexual reproduction takes place. The reproduction in which the two genders, male and female, are involved. The male produces its own cell named as male gamete, pollen grain, and female produce its own cell, own reproductive cell, that is known as ovum or egg. So for that they have different organs, male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ. But rather than these organs, flower also have some parts. For example, the first is pedicel. Pedicel is a stalk-like structure by which a flower is attached to the stem. A flower is, remain adhered to a stem. That stalk, वो डंडे जैसी स्ट्रक्चर बचे जिससे एक फ्लावर अटका हुआ है एक स्टेम पर, that is known as pedicel. Next, second is thalamus. The swollen part of the pedicel is known as a thalamus. जो swollen part है बच्चे, जो pedicel का last swollen part है, in which all the other parts of the flower are fixed. जो बाकी main 4 whorls of flower है जो हम पढ़ेंगे अभी, those are fixed, those are arranged in one swollen part. एक बड़े सूजे हुए part में बच्चे बाकी सारे part arranged हैं. That swollen, that सूजा हुआ part जो है, वो swollen part जो है, that is known as thalamus. उसे हम thalamus बोलते हैं. Next we'll discuss बच्चे sessile flowers. The flowers which do not have a pedicel, ये जो stalk like structure है, ये जो डंडे जैसी structure है बच्चे जिससे ये attach होता है अपनी stem को, ये pedicel जिन flowers में नहीं होता, those flowers are known as sessile flowers. उन्हें क्या बोलते हैं? Sessile flowers. Next we'll discuss the parts of a flower. There are basically 4 whorls of a flower. The 4 major parts. Non-reproductive parts, the first one is sepals. These are sepals, which the first whorl of a flower. What are sepals? Sepals are leaf-like structures. ये लीफ जैसी स्ट्रक्चर्स होती हैं, लीव्स नहीं, दे आर ग्रीन इन कलर. व्हाट दे डू इज दे प्रोटेक्ट द बड इन इट्स अर्ली स्टेजेस. बिफोर बिकमिंग अ फ्लावर, प्लांट्स हैव अ बड. प्लांट्स पर एक कली होती है बच्चे. दैट बड विल ग्रोज इनटू अ फ्लावर, इनटू अ कंप्लीट फ्लावर. सो फॉर द प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ बड, द प्लांट्स हैव सेपल्स. Sepals are leaf-like structures which protects a flower in its early stage, that is in the bud stage. The group of sepals is known as calyx. जो group of sepals है बच्चे उसे क्या बोलते हैं? Calyx बोलते हैं. The group of sepals of a flower is known as calyx. Next, second part is petals. Petals are brightly colored. You must have seen the flowers of yellow color, white color, pink color, red color. Those flower, orange color, those flowers are colored due to different color of petals. They are brightly colored because they have a specialized structure named as a chromoplast, which provide them color, different kind of colors. Why? So that they can attract insects for pollination. What is pollination? The male reproductive organ, that is stamen, will transfer its gamete, that is pollen grain, towards the female reproductive organ. This transfer is known as pollination. And insects helps in that transfer. बेटा प्लांट मूव्स नहीं कर सकते तो उन्हें पॉलिनेशन के लिए क्या चाहिए? एजेंट्स चाहिए. अपने गैमीट को दूसरे रिप्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गन तक पहुंचाने के लिए, मेल को अपना सेल दूसरे तक पहुंचाने के लिए एक एजेंट चाहिए. एंड दैट एजेंट्स आर इंसेक्ट्स, एयर, वाटर. तो इंसेक्ट्स फ्लावर की तरफ अट्रैक्ट हो और उस पॉलन को ले जाए यहां से, इसे पॉलिनेशन बोलते हैं. और इसके लिए पेटल्स ब्राइटली कलर्ड है. द ग्रुप ऑफ पेटल्स ऑफ अ फ्लावर इज नोन एज कोरोला. जो ग्रुप ऑफ पेटल्स है उसे हम क्या बोलते हैं? कोरोला बोलते हैं. दैट इज रेफर्ड एज कोरोला. सो दैट इज द ब्राइटली कलर्ड स्ट्रक्चर प्रेजेंट इन द फ्लावर, due to which the insects got attracted towards it, is known as petals. These two parts are the non-reproductive parts. Why? Because they are not giving rise to the reproductive cells, that is pollen grain and the egg. The next two whorls are stamens. The third whorl is stamen. Male reproductive part of a flower. The part in which male gamete, male sex cell, that is pollen grain, is formed. This stamen has two parts. Look at. The first is the stalk-like structure, filament. This one, ये डंडे जैसी जो structure है, this is stalk-like structure, STALK, stalk-like structure on which a swollen structure is present named as anther. And these two combine together to form stamen, the male reproductive part and the third whorl of a flower. ये जो stalk like structure है बच्चे, this is filament and it has a swollen structure which is anther. Anther has pollen grains in it. This anther possesses the pollen grains, the male gametes by which the reproduction in flowering plants takes place. The plants in which flowers are produced, the plants which bear flowers are known as flowering plants. So, that is the male reproductive system. It composed of two parts. One is anther, the swollen part, and another one is filament, the stalk-like structure on which the anther lies. But if we cut this anther, if we pluck it and cut it from in between like this, let us suppose this is anther बच्चे. अगर हम इसे बीच में से कट करें और इसे मैग्नीफाई करके देखें, it appears like this. कुछ इस तरह का दिखाई देगा बेटा. It has certain sacs, थैली जैसे स्ट्रक्चर लग रहे हैं बीच में, गोल गोल sacs बोलते हैं, SACS sacs, थैली जैसे स्ट्रक्चर. These have tiny pollen grains in it. ये जो है बच्चे, ये एंथर है. इतना बड़ा क्यों दिखाई दे रहा है? हम ये मैग्नीफाइड व्यू बना रहे हैं. We are watching it under a microscope. तो ये माइक्रोस्कोपिक डायग्राम है. ये एंथर है, इसको हमने कट किया पहले बीच में से, उसको देख रहे हैं. It appears like this. It has sac-like structure. ये जो गोले लगाए हैं, the circles, they are representing the sacs. Actually, these are like this. थैली जैसी स्ट्रक्चर, इसमें कोई चीज रखी जा सकती है. So these pollen sacs, these are. They possess the male gamete, male reproductive cell, male sex cell, that is pollen grain. And by this, reproduction takes place. That's why it is the reproductive part of a flower. The next one, the fourth whorl, is pistil. Female reproductive organ. It is composed of three parts, and female gamete, that is egg और ovum, एक ही नाम है ये. egg और ovum एक ही बात है बच्चे, दोनों में से कोई भी नाम यूज कर सकते हैं. is produced in this pistil. It has three parts. The first one is at the bottom. ये कुछ फ्लास्क जैसा स्ट्रक्चर है बच्चे. This is ovary. This upper part is stigma, and this middle part is style, and these three makes up the pistil. The fourth whorl of a flower, female reproductive system. There are four whorls of flower. Initially, I explained it. First one is sepals, the leaf-like structures which protects the bud in early stages. Petals, the colorful, brightly colorful structures which attract the insects for pollination. The two whorls, these are the non-reproductive parts, but they are whorls of a flower, major parts of a flower. The next, third and fourth, that is the two whorls, male reproductive organ, reproductive part, and the other one is female reproductive organ. मेल हैज टू फर्दर पार्ट्स, इसके फर्दर दो पार्ट है, एंथर है और फिलामेंट है। एंथर में पोलन ग्रेन होता है जिसके लिए ये रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट कहलाता है, जबकि बच्चे पिस्टल के तीन पार्ट है। ये फ्लास्क शेप है, फ्लास्क जैसा, जो बॉलिंग होती है, जब बॉलिंग करते हैं, दैट बॉलिंग ऑन अ बॉलिंग रोल, उसके ऊपर जो स्टिक्स होती है जिसको गिराते हैं, वैसा कुछ स्ट्रक्चर लग रहा है, फ्लास्क जैसा है। द अपर पार्ट इज नोन एज अ स्टिग्मा। व्हाट डज इट डू? स्टिग्मा इज स्टिकी, चिपचिपा होता है बच्चे। इट adhere the pollen grain with it, अपने साथ pollen grain को चिपका लेगा। ये pollen grain इस पर एक बार आ गया तो जल्दी से रिमूव नहीं होगा। It is the receptive part of a flower, of a female reproductive system. Receptive means which receives something, and what it receives? It receives pollen grain. Pollen grain को receive करेगा बेटा। Next, ovary. बच्चे, if we cut down the ovary, how we cut down the ovary? We pluck this pistil from a flower and it is a structure like this. इस तरह की स्ट्रक्चर होगी बच्चे। अगर हम इसे कट करके और फिर देखें मैग्नीफाई करके, तो हमें कुछ ये इस तरह की दिखाई देती है बीच में से। ये ओवरी का कट सेक्शन है, जैसे हम लेडी फिंगर कट करते हैं, कुछ वैसा। These are known as ovules. These are the sacs in which egg or ovum is formed. बच्चे, अगर हमने इस पोर्शन को निकाल लिया है फ्लावर से, इसे कट करके देखें, ये सब कुछ माइक्रोस्कोप की हेल्प से होगा। हम इसे नेक डाइस से कट नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज इट इज अ वेरी स्मॉल स्ट्रक्चर। सो टू कट इट डाउन वी रिक्वायर अ माइक्रोस्कोप। For this as well, we require microscopes, bachche. These are not, very large structures. So, if we place it under microscope, we slowly cut it down by the help of microscope only, and then we observe it. It appears like this. It has multiple sac-like structures, sacs which are known as ovules, and in these ovules, egg is present. This pollen grain is fused with this egg, and that's how seed is formed. Zygote is formed. That we will discuss in our next topic. How reproduction occurs in flowers. So, this is the parts of the flower. That are the four parts of the flower. One part which is left, that is style. Style is nothing but it is the, connection between the stigma and the ovary. It connects the stigma and ovary. So, these three constitute together, these three all together referred as pistil. Sorry. The group of pistils in a flower is known as carpels. So, these are the four whorls of a flower, beta. The first one is sepals, petals, stamen, the male reproductive part, and the fourth one is female reproductive part, that is pistil.